After a rather chaotic start there, we've managed to get hold of Ed Keeley from A1 Radio, who's in Peterborough this evening. Good evening, Ed.
Good evening, Jonathan. How are you?
Super fine, thank you, Ed. And thank you very much for coming on this evening to talk about Dox. And I know that there are a lot of people who do know Dox and some that don't so well. And we thought what we do is on the Monday Mix this evening, between now and whenever, we would just talk about him and maybe play some of the music that he loved, including that one, The Animals.
I think that sounds like a very good idea to me, and I know that tune will have gone down very well with him.
And just tell us more about Dox, Ed.
Well, I think it's fair to say, if I'm allowed to mention the name of my station, he was a founding presenter on A1 Radio. Literally, I'm trying to think back now when he joined. We've probably been going officially about 4 or 5 months, and he came on board. He was an avid listener. Actually, it was his son that was initially presenting with us. So, of course, he tuned in to support him. I hadn't met him at that point. And in fact, we had no idea who he was. He came in, obviously, Doxford is not his real name.
Really? Are you joking?
No.
Do you know,
his real name is Olwyn.
He had me fooled all that time, obviously.
Really?
No, I'm joking.
Oh, you rotten swine.
Yeah.
Well, so this strange person called Doxford came in. Obviously was listening to his son do his shows, but never let on that it was his dad obviously listening. And the presenter at the time, his name was Adam. He never let on to me who he was as well. I can understand why he didn't want to potentially be embarrassed. Anyway, long story short, Adam unfortunately got a new job and had to move away and was unable to carry on. But his dad, so I think I'll use the word enthralled with the idea of being able to do radio without having to have a fantastic luxurious studio such as the one you're sitting in, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah, luxurious, Ed.
You've upgraded. But yeah, he loved the idea that you didn't need to have that, although all of us would, of course, love a plush studio such as yours. And so, yeah, he contacted me and said he'd love to do a show. And actually, he took over the slot that Adam had been doing and almost immediately became a hit with not just the listeners, but presenters as well. I mean, I think what's really hit me over the last few days is actually what he meant to everyone involved. Not just a great broadcasting talent, but also a thoroughly nice guy that was a friend to everyone, and a great kind of oracle of advice. I've been to him many times, not just with radio advice, but all things in general. He's come to my aid many times, and others as well. And that's something in the last few days has really kind of come home to bear that, we're really going to miss him.
Absolutely. And you know what, Ed? He's one of the only listeners of the Monday Mix who would ever actually send me an email to apologise for not being able to listen on a particular evening.
For a minute then, I thought you were going to say he was your only listener. I was going to say that's a little bit harsh on yourself.
Tell us more about his attitude to music, and because he talked about music being his proper music show.
Absolutely. Well, the name of his show was The Proper Music Show, and obviously on A1 we have a wide variety of musical styles being played. And the one thing that has to be said for him was he would listen to, basically, if he was able to listen to a show, he would listen to it, regardless of what the genre was. He wouldn't be selective in that respect. But he was an absolute fan of what he would call proper music. And difficult to put an exact definition on it, but if you were going to force me, it would be really 60s and 70s were his bag. The synthesizers and synthesizers. I sound like an old man. This modern hip hop bippy bop stuff wasn't quite his scene, and you would not hear it in his show. It's fair to say, and I've been going back through the records actually, his show pretty much from the first time he came on air was always the ratings winner with us. It was the most popular show, and he would get people, again, a bit like he was for you, who would actually, you make a beeline for his show. They would stop whatever they were doing, and they would tune in and listen and join in the chat room and interact with him. And I know it meant a lot to him to see, regular faces and regular requesters coming in, as I'm sure it does for you as well. It gave him a real buzz, and I think I would be speaking correctly to say that he thoroughly enjoyed it. He was always there to stand in, to do extra. When we rebuilt the main transmission studio here for A1, there was me kind of horrifically wielding a screwdriver and some sort of hacksaw towards electronics, and he more or less pushed me out of the way and said, "Give it to me," and rewired the entire system, rebuilt the entire studio, and then said, "There you go." And that's the kind of guy he was.
Yeah.
He provided all the tools, he provided all the equipment, and didn't ask for a penny in return, just a cold drink. And that's the kind of guy that he was, to be honest.
And a man with real character and a real presenting style that you don't hear much on the radio anymore.
Absolutely. It's interesting, 'cause, obviously, listening to his shows, and I've been listening to them back because we have an archive of everything we've done. And totally unlike me, totally unlike anybody else that I've heard, not rush. I tend to, when I'm doing my shows, I tend to kind of, I call it interjecting energy, but I generally just talk very fast and interject lots of intonation in my voice to sound like somebody from 1995. Whereas Doc's show was, it was him sitting down in front of a microphone, talking to the listener, talking about the songs. His musical knowledge was immense, but never showy. You wouldn't listen to him thinking, a know-it-all. Just sitting there, talking to you, having a real good time. And originally his show used to run, I'm just trying to think now, it used to be 4 hours long. He would go on till 2 a.m, Saturday morning, 2 a.m., and would have listeners from beginning to end. And often I would be, if I was asleep, I would be awakened to messages pleading for me to extend his show, which begrudgingly I would do. But yeah, absolutely fantastic broadcasting talent and an all-round good guy.
I'll tell you what, Ed, what we're going to do, take a quick musical break, then we'll play some more of his favourite music from the Hollies. Are you a big Hollies fan?
With me, I like pretty much everything. But yes, Hollies, I absolutely.
Do you know what? Same with me. Absolutely love the Hollies. And we're going to play this one now in memory of Docs. Long called Woman in a Black Dress. The Hollies there. A special dedication over the last few minutes. We've been speaking to Ed Keeley from A1 Radio. Hello, Ed.
Good evening.
So, we talked about Dox's presenting style. And yeah, you're right, had a real character about his programme. And as I said, it's one of those talents that you don't hear on the radio anymore, really. It's more about just getting the songs in, getting everything in sequence. And it's not quite as exciting to listen to somebody apart from, maybe, I was going to say yourself, but obviously not. So what about your favourite memories of Docs? I'm sure you've got some memories that you can share with us.
The good thing is I've got so many of them, and everything's kind of happened so fast in the last week or so. Having time the last couple of days to kind of sit down and think about some of those. We have held a number of what we call the A1 socials, which is kind of a get-together for presenters and listeners. Usually involves a horrifically undercooked barbecue, lots of music, and sometimes a little bit of alcohol. Drink responsibly, kids.
Really?
Well, not kids, obviously. Anyway, move on. And I think the first thing I became astutely aware of is he ended up a little bit like a father figure, I suppose, to a lot of us. In this, it's literally from arranging marquees, a bit grand, gazebos, to actually cooking the barbecue, to actually, even though I'm the station manager and the owner, I don't like to use the word about myself, but I think inept springs to mind a number of occasions. Without him actually bringing gazebos, extra seats, wiring, hi-fi equipment to actually make it work. If it had been left to me, we'd have been crowded around an iPhone trying to play tunes. He ended up always manning the barbecue. He didn't want to, but again, I would always say, I'll start it. and then get carried away and start poisoning people with anemic sausages. He would take over. It was always a highlight of those socials when we would often we'd have the main studio open and the A1 presenters would kind of take it in turns and have a little stint for half an hour or so. And we'd have listeners who weren't obviously able to come, they'd be tuning in. But at the moment he sat in there, again, everyone would suddenly, the chat room would explode, the listeners would rapidly rise, and everyone would just listen, because he certainly knew how to pick tunes for a party. I think what he liked about the fact was that there was no expectation of him from us of how to do a show, how to interact with people. I mean, I've never kind of imposed any rules on people, but he felt, whereas all of us, I think, to be fair, kind of, I put on a bit of a persona. I think most people do, kind of your alter ego on the radio. He didn't. It was him, as I said earlier on, kind of sitting in front of a microphone. I think that's what made him connect with people and become a hit. I mean, we always used to say, and we were always going to do it, and we never did, and that's a regret, that we were going to have a playlist playoff between him and I. We were always bantering who actually could choose the better songs. Of course, it's naturally me, but and what we were going to do, we were going to pick 20 songs each. We were going to play them out. Another DJ would present it, and we wouldn't tell anyone whose playlist was playing. And we would get the listeners to vote as to which playlist of songs was better. And I'm really kind of gutted. We talked about it for so long. It was so easy to set up, but we never did it. And I really kind of regret that, because, it would have been I just wanted to beat him, basically, and get people to say that I was better, which probably wouldn't have happened, because, as I say, he always had the listeners. He always had the interaction and always great requests. Although I was incorrect. I did say that he liked all music. That was wrong. You probably don't have it, therefore I won't expect you to play it. And if you did, you'd probably alienate most of your listeners. There was one song which I would always put on whenever I knew he was listening, and that is it's a horrific song. It's called Bangarang by Skrillex.
Oh,
don't expect you to play it.
Actually, I've got that somewhere.
If you do choose to play it, just make sure you fade it out before the last 5 seconds, because there's a very rude word at the end.
Okay.
Just in case you do.
Okay. Well, let me have a look and I'll see.
and that song, literally, that's the only song I've ever known which he would refuse to listen. He would walk off and make himself a cup of tea, or a cup of coffee. Big coffee fan. But absolute personality, which, and it's only just kind of sinking in that, he's gone, but he will live on. I made a pledge when the news broke to us on Friday that we would make sure that proper music gets played. And just because he's not with us, we will not stop. So Skrillex, questionable how much airing that will get, but proper music will prevail, as I'm sure it does on your show too. Of course, I often listen to the Monday Mix on Radio Wave between the hours of 7:30 and 9:30.
Thank you, Ed. Thanks for the
which is often then followed by the hilariously entertaining Bode show.
Oh yeah, I mean, who would miss the Bode show? The thing is, he needs a warm-up act, he says. Ed, just to finish off, tell us about what events you're planning for on A1 to remember dogs.
Well, obviously, I mean, it's a difficult subject. We knew, obviously, he was very unwell, but we were all kind of really hoping that there'd be some progress and it would be a better news than it ended up being. But we have now got plans in place. We've been putting through the archives, and we haven't actually told, but she may well be listening at some point. But
well, don't reveal anything you don't need to.
It's not a top secret. But we started off. And this is going to be a job, an enjoyable job, of going through the archive of his shows, which currently we're at just over 500 hours worth of output to listen to. We've got some special shows planned. We're going to kind of get a bit like this, get people's memories, get together and have a good show. It's going to be a happy show, and that's the thing that I know. We had a message from him when he was very unwell at the end, and we got a message through that he wanted everyone to keep listening to the music and to be happy. And I think well, that's the whole point of music. Although some music can make you sad, ultimately, I think music should be an uplifting and a joyful thing, and that's what we intend to carry on. So we're going to have some good shows where we look back at some of the fun, madness, and at times I have to be honest with you, some complete technical incompetence on his side. Some hilarious bloopers, which I'm sure I'll be able to dig out of the archive somewhere. But and I know he would be. He'd probably use a rude word, but he'd be over the moon to know that you've done this show segment for him, because particularly as this isn't even the station he was on, but as you say, I know he often listened to your show. In fact, always tried to listen to your show, much to my disgust, of course, because he wasn't listening to our show that's live currently.
Yeah, but we're not in competition, are we? And
not at all. Not at all.
And you know what, Ed? If you do want to hear more, of course, just keep listening. On A1 Radio, that's A1 with a number 1, radio.co.uk. And listen out for Ed. Listen for more of the stuff that he's talking about in terms of output. And Ed, I'd like to thank you so much for taking time and coming on this evening. I really appreciate that.
I appreciate your time, and I think it's a fantastic thing that you've done. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And best wishes to everybody on A1 Radio, and very, very sorry about your very sad loss. God bless. Thank you very much indeed. Going to play some Roy Orbison now, and hear you on the radio very soon.
Thank you very much. Good night, Jonathan.
Good night.